Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning in the first of our distributor training series. I am getting some feedback on the line, so what I'd ask all of you to do is go ahead and mute your lines for the presentation. Okay, looks like we've gotten that done. So what I will say is if you could bear with us and keep your lines muted throughout the presentation here. I'll spend hopefully around 20-25 minutes going through some content that will open things up for questions. That's will sort of be the format for this and all of the trainings going forward. I do want to mention, well, first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tyson Stolpe. I am the global sales leader for SpotSee, and we're really excited to have you here. This is, as mentioned, this is the first in a series of distributor trainings that we're going to do. The idea is that we're going to do this once a week. The first one here is on a Thursday. Every other one will be on a Wednesday. Happening at this same time. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for as many of these as works out for you. This is the schedule, and this was also in the body of the meeting notice. So this is what the schedule looks like. For the most part, what these trainings will be are going to be a little bit of product information, and then a lot of use cases. The idea is for you to help and understand where we are out there winning with specific end-use scenarios with SpotSee products, so that you can go and replicate that in your territories, in your regions. And really, for us, the thought behind this series was when we're all limited in what we can do from a field visit standpoint during this time, is to give you some thoughts and ideas so that as things start to clear up from a coronavirus standpoint, we come out and start driving things collectively together. So that's the idea. Again, today is going to be more in general terms to kick off the series, to talk about how we solution sell around shipping damage and partner with our customers to help them reduce their shipping damage. And is going to be more at a high level, but as we go through the next 5 sessions after that, it's really going to start with some product information and then a bunch of use cases to help you understand really where the rubber hits the road and how our customers are utilizing our products and valuing our products so that we can all try and replicate that. Just for your understanding, as mentioned, this is going to be recorded. So this session will be recorded and available to you or to co-workers and others. The way that you will access this is on our distributor portal. The portal is spotsee.ihub.org. I will just mention that some of you may not have access to that portal, and if you are having trouble with your account or getting an account set up so that you have access to our distributor portal, Sabrina Azam is our employee that is sort of the leader of the iHub and distributor portal. Her information is on this slide. So I urge you to take note of that and reach out to Sabrina in order to get access, so you can access both the hard copy of this presentation as well as being able to access the recording of it. Okay. One thing before we get into the content or the body of the presentation, I do want to talk to you a little bit about COVID-19 and some selling opportunities for all of us. I know most of you are already well familiar with this. We've had two distributor presentations here over the last couple of weeks on this topic. But in a time where things are shutting down and we're struggling in many ways, we do have some sales opportunities here that I want to make sure everybody's aware of and is taking care of, or taking and going after to the best of your abilities. So one is our COVID-19 temp control card. It's really sort of a card built around our warm mark, our 8C warm mark, that is specifically tailored to help monitor samples, COVID-19 samples, along the CDC guidelines. So making sure that they stay within temperature after the time that the swab has taken place, so that we avoid false negatives, which is, if you're watching the news, you're seeing false negatives is a significant issue. We've had a lot of traction with these cards, whether those are from the kit manufacturers, labs and hospitals, as well as the commercial testing centers. So a lot of places that are utilizing either just our Warmark 8C or this card as ways of keeping those samples, keeping track of those samples and monitoring samples in transportation, as well as in simple management within a lab. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. And if you haven't been, that's something that your company should be putting out on your website to make sure that you're drawing attention to it. The other is something that we've just recently launched, is access to our forehead thermometers. And you're just seeing a picture of one of those on the bottom right hand of the screen. And this is something, obviously, it's a little bit different from our typical transportation monitoring, but something that, is something that everyone, honestly, I've been amazed at the companies and the people that are and the interest level in this product. Within just a couple days of launching it, we've already sold hundreds of thousands of these. So this is something that companies are using to monitor industrial employees to make sure that they're staying safe and identifying potential COVID-19 infection as soon as possible, and keeping the other workers safe. So we're seeing that with customers in manufacturing facilities and distribution facilities. We're also seeing schools use these for employees that are considered essential employees, that are doing things like taking meals to students. So lots of broad application here, but something that if you are, this is the first time that you're hearing about these two solutions, during this time, I urge you to reach out to your regional representative from SpotSee to talk to them about it, because in both instances we are seeing significant uptake of these products, as they're both in dire need right now, to help out with what's going on. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into the presentation for today. As mentioned, we're going to really talk specifically about shipping damage, and how to consult with your customers about their shipping damage, and help them come up with ways and utilization of SpotSee products in order to reduce those damage levels. This is just a high-level agenda. We'll talk about shipping damage in general, talk about how we build a value proposition, and then the types of industries and buyers and questions that we might use to probe those potential customers. So, as a distributor of SpotSee products, that's all across our product line. You really have an opportunity to transform how your customers view you, because for many of you that are primarily packaging distribution, a lot of what you're selling is more on the commodity side, whereas this is a very different type of product that enables you to be seen as a partner in solving logistics issues and shipping issues, and really seen as a consultant. When you are able to walk into a customer and help them reduce their damage, eliminate a pain point, it's an entirely different conversation, and it's really a warm entry to customers that you may have had trouble getting into before. This is we see our products as a terrific entry point across a very wide variety of end users and industries. So it all starts with shipping damage, and shipping damage is a big deal. So if we look at globally, and this is obviously within a typical year, not a year where we've had coronavirus, but 115 trillion goods are shipped, and roughly 2% of those are damaged, which is a huge number. It's $2.3 trillion in shipping damage, and quite honestly, the way that shipping damage is measured is often really understating this. So the expectation is that the true cost is even more than that. And physical damage is about half, or 43%. And what you see as a key driver for shipping damage is the number of touch points, or the number of points where where a product is handled or moved from one type of transport to another. And typically products are handled 10 times throughout the supply chain. The great news is with our products, through the implementation of a monitoring program, we have shown over and over again the ability to reduce shipping damage by as much as 60%, typically ranging from 40 to 60%. But this is, it's really a way outside of beefing up and spending a ton of money on packaging or other solutions. This is a way to dive into a supply chain and understand what's going on and help your customers avoid shipping damage by changing behaviors. So how our programs work. We really sort of boil it down to three things. First is our products serve as a deterrent for mishandling. They truly do change the way that people handle the products during those 10 touch points. And it is and that goes for not just our indicator products, but even our condition monitoring products, that when customers put them in place, people see that they're being watched in some form or another, and they behave differently. I'll give you an example. We had an automotive customer that saw such a huge difference when putting condition monitoring devices on their racks of instrument panels, that they came back to us and asked if they could buy our condition monitoring devices without the guts on the inside. They had gotten such a significant reduction just from the deterrent level without even understanding, sort of the next phases, which are detection and diagnosis. So these programs also work because they help to detect what is going on and understand where it's happening in real time. And so, one of the big deals here is understanding accountability and who's responsible for damage. And so one of the ways, obviously, I can reduce my damage is by knowing which supply chain partner caused it and being able to show that and prove that, so that supply chain partner is held responsible for the damage and payment of that. Finally is diagnosis, and so this really gets to supply chain optimization and understanding if there are issues with certain routes, certain supply chain partners, or certain whole layers of distribution. So it is really, our products can be used to change the behavior, but also to drive overall improvements within the supply chain. All right, so in order to get to the value proposition, there are some things that you have to understand and work through with the customers, and that's really what these next couple of slides go through. is what's the process that you need to go through with the customer to understand their pain points, so that you can establish the value that these products can bring to them. First of all, it's important to understand what the supply chain looks like, the layers of distribution, the infrastructure that's in place, sort of what is the overall lay of the land, and then understand at least what your customer knows about the shipping damage and where the pain is happening. This is, one of the things that we really, and we'll go into details in a couple of slides here, but it's really important that we account for shipping damage and take everything into account, not just the repair or the replacement. But as you're discussing this with customers, you want to make sure that you understand what they know right away, and you can probe for the other elements as far as have you taken into account logistics costs or reverse logistics costs on something that needs to be replaced or repaired. And then finally, an understanding of what they know about the damage source. So, what is causing the damage and the pain that they're feeling from an impact or a tilt or a temperature. Is it primarily one product line? What you're seeing in this picture here is a Pareto diagram. So really helping the customer think through, is there one or two product lines or one or two distribution centers that are causing 80% of your damage? Maybe that's where we can focus as we launch something, whether that's in test or a full rollout. We have, there are a couple of examples, that where we've seen specific issues like that. So, for instance, I'll mention at the very end of the presentation a situation with Steelcase where they had their specific pain point was around a particular product line. That by addressing that product line, we were able to alleviate a huge portion of the damage that they were feeling. One of our customers is Jacuzzi, and theirs was a very different situation where they had one piece of their supply chain that was going through retail where they had absolutely no damage issues, but another one that was going through distribution where they had a ton of damage. So we were able to help them on one side to alleviate that. And then finally, it may be something around router carrier. These are all things that we want to probe for and understand going in, as much as your customer understands, and then ultimately, we'll take that and learn more as we implement a program. But this is sort of the collection of the data to begin with. Once we've sort of gotten an understanding of the damage the customer feels, the next step is really to scope out the project. So whether or not we're going to run a test or actually move straight into an implementation, we need to make a determination of what are the products that we're going to monitor. Is it limited to a certain portion of the supply chain or a certain route? What are we going to monitor, and then what are we going to control against? One of the basics is we can just control against history. So if your customer is able to say, typically I experience 5% or 6% damage rate within our scope, then we can simply use history to monitor our improvement, to see, by implementation of our products and monitoring, how far are we able to reduce that rate. And then how long are we going to run the test, or if it's an implementation, when will we check in to see how we've improved over the course of time. And then the step 3, once you've run your test or run an implementation for some period of time, is really to calculate how we've done and how we've improved things at the customer level. So this is simply, I'll call it very basic calculations here, just sort of showing you the thought process as a customer thinks through their damage profile, and we think through the value proposition that we bring to the table through a monitoring program. So just walking down, first on the left-hand side, you see the cost of damage, and this is looking at the overall shipments, the percentage of those shipments that are damaged, how they or we collectively calculate the cost of the damage per unit, and then what that means to a cost to their organization. The second column is thinking through the cost of implementing our solution. So if we were, in this case, to put a ShockWatch 2 label on each and every product that they ship out, what's the cost of that implementation? And then ultimately what's the extended cost of that solution over the course of the year, or those 250,000 products that are being shipped in this case. The third column is thinking through the savings estimate, and so if we look at their cost of damage, and in this case simply estimate at the low end of our range 40% reduction, what would that savings be? And you can see that with that savings and taking into account the cost of the solution, we're still talking in this case about a very significant savings for the customer. So that's just an example. Obviously, if you run a test or have specifics on the rate reduction that you expect, you can change that and increase that from 40% to whatever your experimentation showed you. So where do we apply this? And the example that I was walking through there was really around an impact or a tilt monitoring implementation, whether that's with our impact and tilt indicators or our condition monitors. For temperature, things are a little bit different because with temperature, the cost of a temperature excursion starts to impact the effectiveness of, for instance, a pharmaceutical medication or food, and that could cause all sorts of damage that when it deals with health of humans, etc. So we didn't go through that, but when you look at across the spectrum of our products and where they're applied, these are the places, sort of high-level industries. And some examples of some of our biggest customers as we look around the world. These are, and as we go through these presentations, each one of these each week, we'll give specific examples within these industries, and using even some of these customers to talk about how we're solving the damage issues, whether it's around impact and tilt, temperature, or condition monitors. As you can see, condition monitors tend to be on bigger equipment. Temperature indicators tend to work primarily with food and pharmaceutical, and then some chemicals and coatings, actually some packaging products as well when we think of shrink wrap. And then impact and tilt indicators tend to be on still equipment and products of value, but smaller and sort of lower value than those within the condition monitoring space. Okay. As far as who we approach, the goal here is really to find people in an organization that have their KPIs around product damage or transportation damage. Who in an organization is charged with damage reduction. This could be project management or product management. It could be logistics or supply chain. Who owns the P&L that really feels the pain of the shipping damage. Who is who manages the partners. That could be the distribution partners or logistics partners. And then there's also customer pain associated with shipping damage. So who owns those customer relationships? And so that translates pretty logically into the places that you might expect. So, typically we are talking to logistics or supply chain job titles, quality management job titles, or product or project management job titles, in some cases general managers or executives. But those are the relationships that we want to forge. Those are the people that we want to interact with, because they're the ones that understand the shipping damage and the impact to their organization. There are others that get involved typically in these conversations, whether those are product or packaging engineers or purchasing, but typically those are not the ones that we want to be engaged with, because they are, in some instances, for instance, with packaging engineers, their interests tend to run against ours, which is really helping their business through a monitoring program help them reduce their shipping damage by changing handling behavior, where a packaging engineer is looking to do that in a different way. These are probing questions, and I would say somewhat repetitive to some of the things that we covered in an earlier slide. Really trying to understand, as you go into a customer, what their pain is, where their shipping damage is, what their supply chain looks like, and what they know about things from the get-go. Obviously, as you get into a project, you can discover more, but what do they know about where their shipping damage is coming from to help us address that problem as focused as we possibly can. Then finally, I mentioned that I try and end here with a quick use case. This is one of our recent wins with one of our new products, which is our ShockWatch RFID product. So our label product that also has RFID. And the customer here was Steelcase, who is one of the largest manufacturers of office furniture in the United States. They in particular had one pain point that on their Pareto analysis was standing out way above the others, and it was a particular type of pedestal product, which doesn't look like something that would receive a lot of damage, but it was something for them that was their most critical and highest pain point. And the other thing that they had going for them was that they had an RFID system already in place, and so through the utilization of our label product, we were able to insert ourselves immediately into monitoring those pedestals and help them reduce that damage and get it to them in a way that is not reliant upon visual inspection of a go, no-go label, but also integrated directly into their ERP system through the reads of their RFID indicators on the product. So this is, just sort of a high level of the type of case studies that we will get into with each of these sessions. Again, in the upcoming sessions, we'll do a little bit on product and then spend time talking about case after case of real examples, real customers where we've helped them solve a problem, and in order to give you some ideas of how you might come out of here and get after something similar. So that is all the content that I have for today. And at this point, I wanted to sort of wrap things up and open the floor for questions if anybody has some. No questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate all of your attending, and if there are questions, feel free to follow up with me directly, or with your regional representative. And we hope to see you again next Wednesday for our next installment, where we will discuss impact indicators and RFID in more detail. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.